Today will be the final lecture. It has a figurative title. It's called Healing with Honey. But this is not the honey that you eat every day or every other day. This is a completely different honey. Now we are going to talk about it. The lecture is titled Healing with Honey. It's named this way because honey represents pure goodness. We simply need to understand what health is. This is the meaning of the concept to gain health. To gain health means to understand what health is. As soon as a person understands what health is, they automatically become healthy very quickly. The only question is how to understand this. This is the biggest difficulty. We have developed a certain worldview, a certain lifestyle over a long time, and today's lecture will be aimed only at helping you understand what health is. Because the concept of health is very complex for many people. For example, most people think that health is the absence of disease, right? Does anyone think differently? What is health? And what is the state of the soul? You feel good, but we need to understand who this you is. That means a person identifies themselves either with the body or with the mind. They say, I feel good when nothing hurts, so they identify themselves with the body at this time. They say, I am the body, I feel good, my body feels good when nothing hurts. It means they are identifying themselves with the body. They say health is a state, a happy state of the soul. A person can consider themselves as the body, and in this case, they will not achieve true health, because their whole life will be geared towards satisfying the body, not satisfying the soul. You understand? This is very difficult to understand. Now we are going to learn together what true health is and where it comes from. We have already discussed many times that a person's health comes from two places. The first place is the oversoul, which is deep inside us, right? It has a subtle nature, and we cannot see it with our eyes. The oversoul is God. It is similarly compared in the Vedas to the sun. The sun shines, and its rays spread light to different parts of the earth. Wherever you go, you feel the presence of the sun. And the sun is always above us, right? Similarly, the oversoul gives its light to every living being. And in every living being, God is present in the form of the oversoul. Why is it called the oversoul? Because there is a soul that is located right here. It is very small, the size of an atom, and it gives the power of life to this entire body and all these layers that we have discussed in our lectures. This oversoul is actually the one who gives the energy of happiness and life. The soul itself is just like a mirror, meaning the soul itself does not possess this power. It uses the power of the oversoul. We only have the ability to accumulate a certain power that the oversoul gives. We can compare it with a spark that flies off from a fire and fades out. Because it loses the power of the fire, so does a living being. When a person moves far away from God, stops thinking about Him, they fade out and gradually lose the power of happiness. We discussed here recently in previous lectures that there are higher planets. Do you know that living beings there feel happiness thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and millions of times more than here on this planet? This is due to the fact that they have more contact with the oversoul. This spark, the soul, is located here. The oversoul is right here nearby. These are its dimensions. Only pure, sinless souls can see it. The size of the oversoul can be determined by the human hand. We can imagine what place the soul occupies in the body. I think from the base of the ring finger to the tip of the thumb. I don't remember exactly. The oversoul is approximately that size, while the size of the soul is that of an atom. You see the difference? And the oversoul fills the entire body with its power. And with what power does it fill the entire body? With the power of boundless happiness, the power of the shining sun. It is described that it is the power of 1,000 suns. If you could see how the oversoul shines, it's the power of 1,000 suns. But since we don't have pure, sinless eyes to see the divine power, we only see material energy. We don't see the spiritual. Therefore, problems occur because we turn away from the divine power and pay more and more attention to the material. As a result, our health becomes worse and our mood becomes worse. This is how the Vedas describe it. This process is happening because it's such a time now, because these processes need to occur. In the Vedas, this is described as two birds sitting on a tree. One bird pecks at the fruits of its actions. Do you know what the fruits of one's actions mean? It means you reap what you sow. That means we do something, and this bird pecks at the fruits of its actions. Sometimes, at some point, it does something good, and sweet fruits grow. It eats the sweet fruits of its actions and rejoices. Sometimes it does something bad, and it pecks at the bitter fruits of its actions and grieves. And the second bird, the oversoul, sits and just watches this first bird. And when the first bird, after thousands and millions of lives in various types of bodies, of which there are 8,400,000 in this universe, finally gets tired of pecking at these fruits, it turns its attention to this second bird, to the oversoul, and then it attains complete happiness and becomes healthy and happy. Thus, a person must comprehend the divine nature, and then they will feel absolute happiness. The greatest happiness in this world is love. For us, love is such a concept that a man can only love a woman, and a woman can only love a man, right? It seems to us that only such love exists in life. But in reality, this is a manifestation of divine power in the opposite sex. This is God manifesting His power. The oversoul, at a certain age, gives energy that makes a person attractive, so that they are loved. But this is the power of the oversoul. Because later, when time passes, the oversoul takes this power away from the person, and the person stops being attractive. And we, seeing this power that comes from the oversoul, think, oh, what a beautiful person, right? But in reality, it's the oversoul shining in them. But the truly lucky one is the person who can comprehend the oversoul themselves. And they gain both health and happiness. They shine like 1,000 suns. When people looked into the eyes of Seraphim of Sarov, they saw that they shone like 1,000 suns. They radiated, and no one could take their eyes off them. And there are many such saints. We just don't know about them because they don't communicate with us. We don't care about them, right? We have other interests. What does happiness consist of? Now we are going to figure this out. Why is everyone unhappy? Why are there so many unhappy people? It seems that happiness exists. Everyone knows that it exists. Everyone wants to be happy. Everyone says, I should be happy, because we feel that it is somewhere inside us. It's sitting somewhere inside us and we're looking for it, but we can't find it. Why is this happening? We've talked about this. This happens because we have a false ego. It's a subtle force that makes us consider ourselves better than others. Everyone will now say, without exception, I don't think that way. I don't consider myself better than others. Almost everyone, many will say so. I just consider myself normal. I don't think I'm better than others. Everyone will immediately start to protest and say, no, I don't think that way. If I say that this false ego prevents us from living happily, then many will say, I don't have a false ego. I'm not selfish. I'm a good person. When a person defends themselves, it also comes from the false ego. They say, I'm good. They are told, you're bad. They say, no, I'm good. They are told, you're selfish. They say, no, I'm not selfish. They always say no. This comes from the false ego. Someone says one thing, and I think differently. I get angry immediately. I don't like such points of view. I say, no, this is bad. This comes from the false ego, because there is also intelligence. We have intelligence. When a person speaks based on intelligence, they have no emotions. They say, perhaps it's so, but I don't know for sure. I thought differently, but they don't stubbornly insist. That means there is an exchange of experience, creativity. It is a false ego, and its concept is as follows. This is the essence of all our problems. Now listen carefully. I am going to tell you the concept of the false ego. If everything comes to me, it's good, but if it's from me, it's bad. This is the source of all our problems and sufferings, the false ego. Those who overcome the false ego attain happiness on this earth. Everyone is born with the same false ego. Everyone has a huge false ego. When a child is born, they cry. They want everything for themselves. If they're not noticed, they start to cry. Everyone is born with the same false ego, but only the person who overcomes it becomes happy. And for this, we need to understand one concept. This concept is called service. When a person wants to live for other people, they receive the happiness of individual sparks, these souls that are around them. But if a person reaches the understanding that one should serve God, then they receive the happiness of all living beings and God simultaneously. Just as when you water a tree, you nourish all the branches and leaves at once. When you water a tree, the root of the tree, all the branches and leaves are nourished. Similarly, a person who directs their strength towards God nourishes everything. But it's very difficult to direct one's strength towards God for someone who doesn't even know what this strength is. You might ask me now, show me where God is, then I'll believe that He exists. Why doesn't God show Himself to us? Because we are not worthy. A person who sees God immediately becomes cleansed of all sins and attains happiness, just like someone who puts a candy in their mouth feels the sweet taste. You tell your child, the candy is sweet. They say, I don't believe it. Give me the candy, then I'll try it and be convinced that it has a sweet taste. You say, you don't deserve it. I won't give you this candy. You can believe it or not, but you don't deserve it. Similarly, one who sees God immediately becomes cleansed of all sins. There's no point for them to live here anymore. They go to the spiritual world, where there is no birth and death. To see the divine power, one must learn to serve, because the false ego hinders us, and this concept of service is very important, and it's very difficult to understand. Because even when we help other people, we imply why we're doing it. For example, I give a lecture so that everyone listens to me, everyone respects me, so that everyone treats me well. This is also a manifestation of the false ego, the desire for glory. Whatever we do, we always ultimately imply some kind of gain. We still imply some kind of profit. Even if a person does everything selflessly, they imply that they will be loved for it. This is all a concept of the false ego. And where will happiness be then? It won't be anywhere. There will be no happiness. All this becomes tiresome. It's all useless. And only when a person starts to do something selflessly, not expecting to be loved or respected for it, then they truly approach the understanding of the truth. But to do this, to make it possible to do this, a person must rise to the level of pure goodness. There are 3 levels of existence for living beings in this universe: the level of degradation, the level of passion, and the level of pure goodness. The level of degradation implies a lack of knowledge. A person doesn't know what to do in this life and what not to do, and we are mostly all at this level now. For example, if I say that one shouldn't eat the meat of killed animals, as many will think, what a madman. Now this knowledge is practically lost. It's very difficult to prove that this shouldn't be done, because this knowledge is practically lost. This knowledge about how not to be ignorant. We talked about this in the lectures. The level of passion is when a person strives for some result. They do everything for the result. They work to get as much salary as possible. They don't work for love, not to get joy from work, not for creation, but simply to get more money. They try to work more. This is the level of passion. A person in the mode of passion doesn't achieve happiness. You know this yourself. Life is just hard. A person works and thinks, I'll rest tomorrow. Today I need to work. And so they live all their lives, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. This is passion. A person in pure goodness already understands that happiness can be attained now. For this, one needs to know what one should do now. You are all striving for pure goodness because you came to this lecture. You told yourself, now I should be at the lecture. I will acquire happiness and I will do everything else later, when the time comes. When the time comes, I will earn money. When the time comes, I will do this, I will do that. When a person comes to work, they think, now I will work with love, and we'll see if I have enough means later or not. I will do everything with love, with joy. If I need to work quickly, if they demand it from me, I will work faster with love. But the main principle is to work with love. This is the level of pure goodness. Not to work being focused on the dollar, but to work being focused on love for the work. This means a person is in pure goodness. It's very difficult to achieve this. Try, practice. And when a person achieves the level of pure goodness, then it becomes easier for them to understand what is good and what is evil, because the heart becomes very kind. Our hearts are very rough, very tough. We don't understand that we shouldn't do it this way. When we work tensely, such energy and force comes from us. We are connected with all our relatives. Our children constantly feel some kind of force from us, and they feel dissatisfied. They constantly feel tension. Our children, all our loved ones, feel problems because we are in a state of problems. And if we work with love, if we do everything with love, then all those around us also enter into such a state. And then happiness arises. A person creates an atmosphere of happiness around themselves. When a rose smells, it spreads aroma around itself and everything becomes beautiful, and it thinks, how good. The rose thinks, how good it is around. Everything smells so nice. It spreads such an aroma by itself. If something smells different, they think that everything around them smells bad. A person doesn't understand that if I smell good, therefore everything around me smells good. They understand that everyone around me smells bad or good. If you ask, some people say, mostly all people are good, only some are ill-mannered, deceived, or unlucky. Other people say, everyone is bad. Those who say everyone is bad are in degradation. Those who say everyone around is good are in pure goodness. A person who considers all people good, even those who commit serious crimes, says, well, they just don't understand how to do things right. Such a person is in pure goodness. Such a person is capable of seeing the effulgence of God and God himself. All others are not capable. This state can be called bee consciousness. There are two types of consciousness, bee consciousness and fly consciousness. Bee consciousness is the consciousness of one who seeks happiness. A fly also seeks happiness, but where? A bee seeks happiness where there is pure goodness. What does a bee do? It flies and looks for honey. It collects what is very tasty. Do you agree? A fly, on the other hand, looks for flaws only. It also flies for honey, flies for happiness. But on the way it sees, everything is bad here. I'll fly over there now. It smells bad there. All flies gather in places that smell bad. A bee comes to a flower and sits on it. There's honey nectar. Its legs are enveloped in this nectar. It's all soaked in it. It emanates fragrance. Then it flies to its hive, where there's already a lot of honey. All the bee's friends are bees. Similarly, a person should only be friends with those who have the same attitude. Those who do everything with love, striving to do only what brings happiness to everyone. They are imbued with the scent of happiness. This doesn't mean they douse themselves in cologne or perfume. It means that happy thoughts emanate from them. We work mainly in the mind. The way our mind works, that's the kind of force that comes from it. If the mind works in a state of happiness, a happy force comes from the mind. If the mind works in a bad state, a person has a fly consciousness, constantly grumbling, disliking everything, looking for flaws. You can check what kind of consciousness you have. You're walking down a road with roses growing on one side and a pile of garbage on the other. If you walk and think, what beautiful roses, what a nice street, there are such wonderful roses here, you are in bee consciousness. If you walk and think, what an awful place, there's a pile of garbage here, nobody cleans up, everyone is bad, the management is bad, they didn't assign a janitor. This is fly consciousness. What's the problem? Why shouldn't one think like this? Because it doesn't help. It doesn't help anyone. If Cleaner, his manager, and the rest of the staff see a person walking by who says, what beautiful roses, it's so lovely here, they will immediately start cleaning up the pile so that the person doesn't notice that there is also garbage. Such is human psychology. That's how they will act. If these people are standing there, you pass by and say, there's garbage here. What will they say? Mind your own business. A clash of false ego occurs. This is the whole problem. We have a false ego. When we put pressure on another person's false ego, what happens? It gets agitated and they start to get angry. So what should we do? We need to learn to take care of others. We have a strongly developed grasping reflex. When a husband comes home from work, we have the mindset like this, what good can he do for me now? We approach him and say, how are you? And he also has the mindset of, what good can his wife do for him? He says, is dinner ready? Instead of responding to, how are you? She says to him, are you in a bad mood? And he says, what, it's not ready? That's where the scandal begins. Why is there a scandal? Is it his fault? Is it her fault? What causes the scandal? It's because neither of them has a mindset to care for each other. When one person develops such a mindset, it becomes difficult for them to live among flies. But if they continue to remain a bee, all the others also begin to be imbued with honey and gradually become bees. This process is very slow. Everything depends on our karma. The amount of dirt in our heart determines how badly people around us will behave. It all depends on the amount of dirt. Gradually, this dirt decreases and people around us change. We say, everything is getting better. It used to be bad, but now it's better. Everyone around me is changing. Everyone is becoming better. It means the heart is changing. Our heart changes. Everyone around us changes, because everyone is imbued with honey. Has anyone ever seen a bad smell around a rose? It smells good around a rose. There's no point in blaming other people, saying, you don't deserve my company, you behave badly around me. I have a bad husband, a bad wife, and bad children. It all depends on our heart, how good it smells. In the end, we must understand that all the people around us are meant only to correct our flaws. We've talked about this many times. Flaws in the heart. The heart makes people behave this way according to the law of karma. A force comes from it that pressures all our loved ones. As a result of this force, they change their attitude towards us. This happens in a split second, we don't see it. It's enough to look at a person and we see our reflection. We see a heavy look, we think, bad person. No, this person just reflects some part of our consciousness, our heart. My heart pressured them and they reacted. If a person has only honey in their heart, they have lived in bee consciousness for a long time, engaged in a lot of prayer, collected divine honey. Then from another person, nectar will automatically come into the heart. The more of this nectar comes, the happier the person becomes. Everyone around them also becomes happier. This is called pure goodness. Pure goodness implies that the more good you do, the better it becomes. Pure goodness and degradation have two laws that are directly opposite. You should understand this now. You will test yourself. A person who lives in pure goodness thinks, in fact, all my problems are inside me. I'm to blame for everything. Everything is working out very well. I have an ideal family. They point out all my flaws. I have a daughter who is a copy of my flaws. My husband is the same. He's always teaching me. What I see in my daughter, I have all of it. What I see in my wife, I have all of it. I manifested all this, and now God has created such a situation for me to improve myself. I have ideal living conditions, just ideal. The person sees flaws only in themselves. This is the level of pure goodness. A person who is in degradation doesn't understand anything at all. They suffer and say, everything is bad, and then they talk about Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law means a person is in degradation. If a person says everything is good, there is a law of justice. That's why everything has turned out this way for me. They are in pure goodness. If a person says there are no laws, the main thing is to grab as much as possible, then everything will be fine. This person is in passion. They cheat, try to grab, thinking that this will make things better. Therefore, there are three categories of people, three laws of existence. Everyone tests themselves, looks at what state they are in. How do people with a consciousness of a bee see the world? They see the world as an opportunity to improve themselves, an opportunity for development. When they see that happiness emanates from someone, they think how lucky they are. Now my fate has given me an opportunity to communicate with a person who emanates nectar. I will collect nectar. That means I will listen to this person, because collecting nectar means to be imbued with it. Do you know how a bee collects nectar? It simply gets soaked in it. It doesn't have a bag, right? It flies there and just puts its legs on that spot, right? It is completely immersed in this nectar, then flies back and leaves it in the hive. That's how a bee acts. What does it mean, to immerse? This means to listen and somehow serve, do something useful. It means to engage your senses in perceiving the nectar. For example, if you eat in a holy place, you receive blessed food. This is also nectar. You have heard about God, about truth, and have been imbued with this power of happiness. If you listen about God and experience suffering, it means the wrong person is talking about God. If you listen about God and experience a great feeling of happiness and satisfaction, it means the right person is talking about God. Sometimes, of course, there is a purification process. When a person experiences suffering, even when everyone else feels good, that's a different matter. So a person gets imbued through the ears, through the eyes. Sometimes a person is nice to look at, sometimes not. If it's pleasant to look at, it means a good energy is coming from the person. If it's unpleasant to look at, it means a bad energy is coming from them. Therefore, we search where to get nectar from. We can take nectar only from where we can serve. There is such a thing as snatching nectar. This comes from a false ego. Nectar can be obtained by serving a holy person. For example, listening to them in a humble state. There are people who come to a holy person and say, "Tell me about the absolute truth." He starts to explain, they argue with him, which means they can't get nectar this way. Only when we listen and thus serve, we are getting filled with this divine power and can feel happiness in our heart. This is how we accumulate honey. We get imbued with honey in this way. Listening, inhaling the smell. We enter one room, there's a rotten smell. We enter another, there's a pleasant smell, a fresh aroma, right? Test the place you're coming to. Remember, we talked about how different senses can be used to test different things. With a look, we can determine a person's mindset according to our karma, according to our fate. This person is inclined to educate me, and this person is inclined to give me mercy. Two types of people. We need to figure this out. There are no bad people. There are only people with different attitudes. Some educate us, others give mercy. We should serve those who educate us. A husband comes home from work in the mood of an educator and says, "Why haven't you prepared anything for me to eat?" You cheerfully say, "Sorry, my fault. Just give me a second. I'm going to make something for you right now." He thinks, "Wow, something is changing in my heart. Well, maybe not from the first time, but by the 5th time he will definitely think so. When we are set up for serving others, we start to smell good, you understand? We all use perfume and colognes thinking it will change our odor, but it still remains unpleasant. Why? Because the odor characterizes the state of the soul. Therefore, when you enter one room, one apartment, and you feel a heavy smell, it means there's a heavy atmosphere there. It is befouled. We need to start serving these people, need to talk about something good, turn on spiritual music and so on. As a result, the atmosphere will be cleared. Doing so, we can help. When we cleanse odors everywhere, we cleanse the odor of our own heart. Let's say we come to an apartment or a house and think, I won't stay here, and leave. This is in the mindset of a fly. What does a fly see in everything? A fly doesn't see the opportunity to make honey. It just sees, you know what? Thus, such people grumble and complain all the time. They go around grumbling, there's nothing in the store, the government is bad, this and that. Vasily Ivanovich is bad, I don't get paid my salary. Why are wages not paid at work? Because you don't deserve it according to your fate. It's time for a situation like this. Often this time comes for many people simultaneously. We are born in one place, born nearby, because our fates are similar. The language a person speaks, Russian for example, resonates on certain subtle energy centers. This sound is also connected with our karma, with our fate. We were all born together in this place, because that's our fate. And when inflation starts or something else, it's also according to everyone's fate. Therefore, there's no point in blaming anyone. It's just time for us to suffer in this way, then it will be different. That's how life educates us. There are no problems. This is the consciousness of a bee. The consciousness of a fly is different. It says, it's terrible. It's impossible to live. Everyone is bad. Everyone around me is a scoundrel. Even close relatives are trying to deceive me. They don't give me a salary. Everything is bad. And there are 2 types of communication. The first type of communication is between bees. The second type is between flies. When bees gather, they start talking about how to make everything better. They talk about God, or they talk about something good. When flies gather, what do they talk about? They list how prices in the store have increased. Fyodor Petrovich has this problem. Maria Ivanovna has that problem. That person does this, you know. Have you heard? We have such news in our factory. Alla Pugacheva got married and so on. And they sit for 2-3 hours listing all this. And then they say, you're a good person? Why good? Because if I criticize another, it means I'm automatically good. If I say that this one is bad, it automatically means I'm good. Well, you know, a person has a subconscious. There's also the oversoul. It talks to them both, and when they separate, they both think, well, Maria Ivanovna criticizes everyone, but she's no better herself. That is, it starts again with each other, and then she meets another lady and starts to criticize Maria Ivanovna. Well, plus everyone else, of course. This is the consciousness of a fly. Flies also consider each other bad. Because it smells bad, you see, a fly smells bad. Therefore, flies have no friends. They don't particularly live in clusters. They don't have a hive. They fly separately because they smell bad. Bees live all together because they smell good. How can you live with someone who smells bad, right? It means there's not enough honey for happiness. Now we'll say, show me where this honey is, I'll go eat it now. Whose consciousness is this? A fly's. And on its way to the honey, where does a fly stop? On a pile of garbage, yes, and thus doesn't reach its destination. Because everything around is bad. The one who has the consciousness of a bee wants to serve, wants to bring honey. They don't do all this for themselves at all. They don't want to become a good person for themselves, not at all for themselves, not for their own happiness, but simply so that everyone around would be happy, so that the children would be happy. Because they understand. What makes children feel bad? It's not because they lack a brand-name bicycle, as we might think. For example, if you give a brand-name bicycle to a Papua New Guinean, they might not even understand what it is. Children smile. They feel good. Why does this happen? A child is happy even if they don't have an Adidas brand bike yet. In the past, we didn't even have televisions. Many places didn't even have electricity, yet people still smiled. Some smiled, some didn't. It all depends on consciousness. A child simply needs happiness, just like all of us, but not everyone understands this. Since the child has already absorbed our concept of happiness, they know that for happiness they need to work hard. One needs to earn more money and buy a better bicycle than everyone else's. Then I go out on the street, sit on this bicycle, ride, and look at everyone. I'm good because I have a brand name bicycle, and you're all bad because yours aren't brand name. Antagonism automatically arises in their hearts. They think, this one is bad. Vaska is bad because his consciousness is very bad. He's very proud, riding on fancy bicycles. But I'll definitely beg my mom for an even better bicycle. False ego flares up in this way. This doesn't bring happiness because everyone has a negative attitude. Everyone starts to envy. Envy is a force that befouls everything. That's why we suffer and struggle so much. We envy each other. We try to live better. We say, we need to live better. We need to have an apartment that's better than the neighbor's. Definitely. If the neighbor's is good, mine should be better. If the neighbor has better and we can't achieve such results, we say, yeah, she's just a thief, that's all. We envy, but with quiet envy. The point is that this is all foolish. It doesn't lead to a good result. It doesn't increase happiness at all. So what is happiness? Happiness is about letting go of misunderstandings of happiness. What does a child need? They simply need happiness, that's all. Not through some object, but directly. They need happiness right away. I'm explaining to you a secret. It's very simple to do. For this, you just should enter your home with the mindset of a desire to serve. At first, maybe not God. At first, we might not be able to attain the greatest happiness. At least serve your loved ones. With a service mindset, we enter the house and say, would you like me to smile at you, son? Would you? But since he has absorbed the concept of a fly, because that's how we've raised him, he says, Mom, have you gone crazy or what? Did you buy the bicycle or not? You say, no, but I want you to be happy. He says, what kind of wish is that? You didn't buy the bicycle, but you want me to be happy. And then you understand that this approach won't make your child happy. Nowadays, when everyone around is in such a bad, difficult state of consciousness, you shouldn't open your heart. Instead, focus on being in a state of service. You need to try to love all your loved ones in your soul. You need to wish them happiness every second. This should be your heroic act. You will notice that others don't act this way. When your false ego flares up, you'll desperately shout at your husband, I've been wishing you happiness for half an hour now, but you're a very bad person. Eventually it will all pass. You'll calm down again. He might ask, what do you mean you were wishing me happiness? Explain what that is. Are you going crazy? You'll say, no, I was just joking. And you carry on. You continue to wish happiness to everyone, your loved ones, your children. You want to make them feel good. But you know there won't be happiness if you satisfy them by working hard, earning more money, and buying them things that will corrupt their consciousness. More beautiful things, more fashionable, better. They will just become more and more arrogant. You'll think, what an arrogant son I'm raising. Other parents have it better. That neighbor is poor and her children are better. They don't ask for anything. Then we say, who did you take after to be such a fool? You see the problem that immediately arises? The problem is that we don't know how to create happiness. It's very difficult because our false ego constantly pushes us to prioritize ourselves. It always says, do what's best for you. Even when we wish happiness for everyone, we'll think, when will they improve so I can feel good about wishing them happiness? This is how the false ego works. It's very invincible. There's a great power in it, but we must defeat it. Then we will be happy. For this, we need to constantly be in a struggle. People are born on this earth to fight with their false ego. This is called asceticism practice. When a person fights with their false ego, it's called asceticism practice in pure goodness. When a person engages in asceticism practice in pure goodness, they undoubtedly elevate themselves and their life becomes successful. So every moment we should believe in happiness and confront the feeling of not being understood. How can this be done? This is achieved not by proving our worth. It is achieved not by showing our goodness externally, but by changing our inner mindset and our way of thinking. We need to start doing all this in our thoughts. We need to wish happiness for everyone in our minds. We need to act with sincere goodwill towards our loved ones in our thoughts. We need to know exactly what good consists of. A wife needs to prepare food for her husband. This is called a wife service in pure goodness. It should be prepared with a mindset of happiness and offered with love and tenderness. He will feel happy and satisfied, which will lead him to say, I have the best wife in the world. When we prepare food, we should mentally offer the food to God, because He is the source of all strength and all goodness. You know that everything we do, everything we have comes through the Oversoul. The Oversoul gives us strength for everything. When someone feels inspired, it's a sign that it comes from the Oversoul. Thus, when a person does something, they should offer it to the Oversoul. They should first of all say, I want to look at you, at that bird that sits and watches me, and has been waiting for thousands of years for me to finally look at it. because it is the source of all happiness. If we can do it, this will be our most important achievement. When a person thinks, this is all empty and pointless, all this running around and looking for as much money as possible, we need to do everything with love. We just need to do everything for the benefit of others. Then people won't turn away from me and resist. When I try to grab something from them, their false ego gets excited. They start pulling towards themselves. A struggle occurs. We are all now in a state of struggle. But besides the false ego, we have another force inside us. This is the force coming from here, the force coming from here, from the oversoul. This force says, just do something nice for the person. Just do something nice without expecting anything in return. Don't expect an answer. At that moment, a different response arrives, which many have forgotten. This response comes right here, inside. Then a great inspiration arises. A feeling of joy, happiness, and peace arises. Your life no longer feels wasted. A selfless desire to do something good arises. What's hindering us? The wounded false ego. It's offended. It insists, why should I do something good for them? They treat me poorly. They always do things that hurt me. This is the offended false ego. All human diseases come from various kinds of offenses of the false ego. I feel bad. There's no point in living. Nobody understands me. I'm lacking something. I'm not getting enough. You understand? I don't have time to rest and so on. All of this stems from a false ego. That means for me. This is where all diseases come from. Are there people here who don't get sick? Are you happy? All right, you don't need to listen to this lecture. You already know everything. A person without a false ego who genuinely wants to serve everyone is insatiable. In general, the soul is insatiable. You understand? The soul is insatiable. It says, it's not enough for me. I'm unhappy. It's not enough for me. I want to serve all people even more. I want more happiness. I want to experience this true state of happiness. Everyone feels insatiable. Everyone desires happiness and thinks, I don't have enough money. They think that money equals happiness. They strive to earn more, thinking, well, finally I have more money and more happiness. I can rest, go to a resort, right? But you arrive at the resort and the food is bad. Something else is wrong. You sleep, eat, and drink. We leave with the mindset that we rested, but somehow the rest does not feel real inside. I think, that's it. I've rested. I feel good. But we're just engaging in self-suggestion, right? This is not true rest. You know, a person cannot rest if they're not doing something good for someone else. Even in sleep, even when we go to bed, the fatigue still lingers. True rest comes when a person is engaged in their favorite activity. A favorite activity means doing something beneficial for others. For example, if we're just robbing everyone else, this can't be a favorite activity. You understand? A favorite activity could be planting a flower in the ground. Why do people strive so much to go to their country houses? They want to do at least something good, like planting some flowers and watching them grow. Joy emerges inside. We should plant a flower in the heart of our loved ones. It will grow every day and emit fragrance. I'll explain how to do this. To do this, you need to overcome that troubled false ego. When you try to plant the seed of your flower, a rose, for example, in their heart, they push it away and say, leave me alone. You've offended me. Then you bring it in again next time. Eventually they will calm down. Somehow it happens that you'll successfully plant it. They will think, my wife is actually a good person. This is where cooperation begins, you understand? From that moment. But it takes significant effort. For this you must serve in secret. Right now people have a very aggressive consciousness. Any positive activity is perceived very enviously. You understand? We have gathered here to discuss how we can secretly overcome suffering in the future. It is a secret society. Lovers of happiness. Why secret? If you go home now and say, I attended a lecture where a good person told us how to be happy, they will listen to you and say, how much did he charge? That's it. It's just impossible to explain, you understand? It's impossible. So there's no point in even trying, you understand? You need to change yourself from within, starting now. This is where you need to start, you understand? It's a complex process. There are two options. The first option is to do something good for your loved ones with great determination. Just do something nice for everyone. But if you bring a bottle of vodka to your husband and say to him, from the bottom of my heart, I know what you like. Here, take it. Then he'll get drunk and beat you because he'll be in a drunken rage. Understand that doing something pleasant means not catering to a person's bad habits, but helping them progress toward pure goodness. Therefore, you need to know what to do for another person in general. We often don't even know what we can do for our wife or our husband that would benefit them. So what can you do when you don't know anything at all? You simply need to wish them happiness. We are like children. We don't know at all what to do, how to act. What does he need? Should you buy cigarettes or a more expensive suit to please him? Because he doesn't need anything else anymore, he only needs a suit, cigarettes, and wine. What should you do? Well, you shouldn't do any of this, as it won't bring him happiness, you understand? Happiness will come from something else, when we simply wish happiness. Then the atmosphere around us will change, you understand? Gradually, we will learn to understand what needs to be done to truly benefit everyone, including our children. So how should we treat them? The first understanding is this: we need to change ourselves. Then everyone will be better off. Why is he feeling bad? Who does he communicate with the most in his life? With me. Well, then I need to become better. It's very difficult to understand. Why should I improve? Why? Let him become better. That's what the false ego says. This is the mindset of a fly. A bit of understanding starts to emerge, right? The next stage is when a person understands the source of happiness. It's very difficult to understand. Why is it difficult? There's a secret. Why do all people on this earth live in one particular state? Most of them. Now I'm going to look deep into your heart and mind too. When we're told this is from God, something turns inside us. We think, what nonsense. It feels unpleasant. What does from God mean? These are incomprehensible things, some kind of absurdity. These are simply remnants of the past. We possess a force because of which we were born here on this earth. This is written in the Vedas, the Holy Scriptures. The Vedas state that people are born here for one reason only, because of hatred towards God, you understand? This is why they end up in the material world. There is only one reason, either hatred or lack of love for God. That's why we end up here. We have hatred towards God. It's very deep-seated in our hearts, you understand? Therefore, if I say, God is the source of all happiness because this power comes from Him, distrust immediately arises. As soon as I say that, distrust arises. If I, for example, tell one of you, you are the source of all happiness, the trust arises. You'll think, well, yes, he's saying good words actually. However, since I would be considered abnormal for agreeing with this, I won't agree. I'll say, no, you're mistaken. Yet deep down in the soul, somewhere inside, there's a force that acknowledges, yes, it's true. But when we say, God is the source of all happiness, a different force emerges within the soul. This is difficult for some people to admit. Mostly people envy God. So the next stage involves trying to overcome this barrier because it seems impossible. How can it be true? Why does this vast universe filled with such a large number of planets operate like clockwork? Where have you seen a mechanism that functions with such precision? The sun rises and moves precisely at the same time each day. Everything happens at the right time, like clockwork. Where did this come from? Why is a person carried for a certain time, born at the right moment with everything precisely controlled? The mother eats what is needed and everything unfolds naturally according to certain laws. The mother eats what is necessary for the fetus. This is the law of happiness and treatments are based on this law. Doctors think, I can overcome many diseases. Doctors stuff a person with medicine believing, I can defeat the disease. Other doctors recognize a law of happiness, understanding that we must create normal conditions for the body to function. The body will heal itself rapidly because everything within it is perfect. There are two methods of treatment. One method involves removing the obstacles that prevent a person from living happily. The second method is to force-feed them something bigger and more modern. The first method makes a person happy and healthy. It frees a person from problems. The second method merely suppresses diseases. Thus, there are two concepts of health. The first concept is the absence of diseases. If a person isn't sick, they are considered healthy. The second concept of health is the feeling of happiness. When a person is happy, it means they're healthy. This second concept arises from the following notion. What is health? Health is when every organ inside the body is in a state of happiness. You know, if my heart feels unhappy, if I have a heaviness in my heart, or if my liver hurts, these organs are unhappy. Each of our organs is in a state of happiness or sorrow. This comes from whether our entire existence is filled with happiness or not. If the soul pays attention to the oversoul and strives to live according to God's laws rather than the laws of meanness, then at that moment the power of happiness flows from the oversoul, filling the entire existence through the soul. In this moment, the whole body is infused with an enormous power of happiness. When a holy person gives you this knowledge through the heart, through listening, if you just listen and feel this knowledge, then instantly the entire body will be illuminated with health and happiness simultaneously. This is how healing occurs. When Jesus Christ touched a person's forehead, a revolution happened in the person's heart at that moment of contact. They realized they are a soul, not just a body, and suddenly saw a radiance within themselves, coming from within. At that same moment, they were healed. This is how it occurs. This is how it's described. First, they see some kind of radiance within themselves, a radiance coming from within, and then in the next moment, they recover. What does it mean to recover? It means they are instantly healed from a severe illness. This happens rapidly, within seconds. It's a miracle, and everyone says it's a miracle. Holy relics, or just dust and earth from saints, when a person touches them, healing occurs if they are able to make contact. Do you know what faith is? We have a center of thought here, from which the power of human thought emerges. If a person believes, it means this power of thought automatically harmonizes completely with the source of information from which the information comes. When a person approaches a grave, they completely harmonize with that energy if they strongly believe that this will happen, and if it's truly an authentic grave where the saint really rests and they haven't been deceived. Knowing how not to be deceived in this way is an entire science. One should base their knowledge on the scriptures, then you will definitely get where you need to. And not base it on the statements of some persons. One must be reasonable. Then when a person approaches and looks, they receive this power. You can also receive such power from the sacred texts. If a person looks with strong faith, they receive enlightenment. Why do people go to monasteries? Some may think they're all foolish or fanatical. Many think, my Maria Petrovna has just gone crazy. She went to a monastery to live there, and everyone told her, listen, become a normal person, get out of there, leave. But she replies, no, I feel so good here, really good. I've never experienced anything like this before. Because this person is not like us, we assume they're bad or misguided. But you don't need to go to a monastery to live there. You don't need to do that. It's enough to simply gain this consciousness that there is a power that can bring happiness. You must understand that this exists. That means breaking free from the state of degradation and the influence of the law of meanness, telling yourself, yes, this power exists, and people can be trusted. To do this, you need to find people who have discovered real qualities in themselves and communicate with them more. A bee seeks to communicate with bees. You need to search for this power of happiness. Most people around suffer, but somewhere there are happy people. Study this. Mostly everyone smiles, pretending to be happy. If you go into some flourishing company or firm, you'll see everyone behaving very politely in a polished, well-groomed environment. They're all smiling, but their eyes are sad. Look into their eyes, because eyes are the mirror of the soul, not their words. Everything about them is very beautiful. They speak to you very politely. Yes, we'll assist you now. Everything will be fine, as it should be. And they have a dollar sign drawn on their forehead. Please, everything will be ready now for you, for dollars or rubles. This is unhappiness because in your soul you think, no, they're scoundrels, bad people. Thought is material. It immediately connects with this person, and they think, let him think that about me. It doesn't matter, as long as he pays the money. There's no happiness in this dynamic. What kind of happiness is this? Real happiness lies in sincere relationships. Where is that sincerity? Where is this power that brings joy? We have lost it all because we have a different attitude. This doesn't mean we should reject everyone saying, no, these are all bad people. Dr. Torsunov said that bad people work in banks. I am not saying that. I am simply giving an example. Please don't pay attention to the details. I'm just providing analogies. A person can start helping others in a bank or somewhere else, regardless of their profession. Of course, you need to earn money. That goes without saying. You can't live without it at all, but it shouldn't be the primary focus. The main goal should be the desire to make someone happy. This is the consciousness of a bee. The next stage is when a person does this many times. After many experiences in their life, they finally begin to realize everything is the same. Every person has the power of happiness, everyone. I treat this person well, and they become happy. I treat that person well, and they become happy. Everyone becomes happy. It happens somewhat similarly. The individual starts to generalize. He feels a single source of happiness. Happiness somehow flows through all people in the same way. It's the same condition, and the same condition arises. Through pure goodness, a person truly comprehends God, and a true understanding of what God is arises within. The false understanding of God is that He is merely a figure who controls everything, and if you behave poorly, He punishes you. If you behave well, as He desires, He tells you, you're good, and rewards you with wealth. God seems like some kind of banker. If you do everything according to the bank's laws, then He rewards you with wealth and health, and we then bow to Him saying, please give me health, and I will be good. Give me wealth, I will be good. Give me a good wife, we pray. He responds, okay, since you love me, I'll give you everything. Here, receive wealth, health, and a wife. We think the main thing in this world is simply to be humble and pray to Him for everything to be fine. But when you have everything, why pray? You already have everything. Ultimately, the scriptures, including the Bible and other sacred texts, affirm that God is the best friend of all living beings. It is written that God says, I am your dearest friend. A true friend would not act like that. He wouldn't reward good deeds with good things. God always loves us. Would you like me to prove it to you now? Does the sun always shine? It always shines. Do you have a body? You do, and it's alive. All of this is a gift from God. God gives us a wife, children, and a family. We ourselves, through our actions, change all of this. As a result of our bad actions, when there should be a good wife, we end up with less than ideal partner. Everything depends on our actions. We are born where we are supposed to be born. Everything is already organized here. There is food for us. There is shelter. We are not born homeless. For those who need to be born homeless, this is also for their benefit. We take these blessings for granted. We assume there's water in the tap because that's how it should be. When there's no water in the tap, we start howling and complaining. This is terrible. They've become so brazen. Yet there was a time without taps at all and no one howled. People carried water from wells. We don't understand because we're used to it. The sun always shines, right? Yes. This is divine power for our well-being. It's hard to understand. Now, when I start talking about this, everyone's already asleep. Why are you telling us these incomprehensible things? The Volga flows into the Caspian Sea. The sun shines. Why is He bothering us at all? It's confusing. It's difficult to understand. Because we have a consumer mindset. This is why we suffer. This is the whole problem. How do we overcome this? It's very simple. For this, you need to start wanting to be happy. Who wants to be happy? Raise your hand. That's it. From this moment on, everyone wants to be happy. It's very simple to do. Let me explain. To achieve this, you need to do two things. First, help others. Second, serve God. That's it. Just these two things. And that's all. Nothing else needs to be done. You need to do this in your heart. You don't have to go to church and bow down so that everyone can see. You don't need to gather all your relatives, hit your forehead on the floor, and loudly cry out, Lord, have mercy on me. This is just for show. If you truly love God, why shout? Just love Him quietly in your heart, because He is nearby, right here. The distance is small. You just need to love Him in your heart. Likewise, love the people around you. You need to do this in your heart. You don't need to show anyone, I'm so good, I love everyone. Why? This all comes from false ego. This is all insincerity. You need to start this process internally. You need to do this in secret from everyone else. You don't need to tell everyone, I'm doing this now. I wish you happiness for 15 minutes every day. Can you feel it or not? You don't need to say any of this. You should try to do this in secret, confidentially. And you know what results from this secret? From this secret, your heart gradually fills with honey. You will directly feel this sensation, the sensation of honey inside. Right here, in the heart area. It will be filled with honey. And then your neighbor will come to you and say, you know, Fyodor Petrovich is a president there, and she'll start telling you gossip. This won't affect you anymore, because your heart is satisfied. You won't want to gossip anymore. You'll tell her, come, let me treat you, I have special food. I prepare it in a happy state. It becomes blessed food. You'll say, no, I was joking, come, just eat. She sits down, eats, and says, what jokes you have. Actually, it's very tasty. She'll start eating, and after a few times you'll say, you just need to think about good things when you're cooking, and then everyone will feel good. It's a law that exists. When a person thinks about God, then divine food is created. When they cook while thinking about God, divine food is created. When you think about good things, good food is created. When you treat everyone with love, then love is contained in the food. It's very simple to cook well. The same principle applies to our work. Exactly the same. This is the secret of raising children. Why do we raise children? It's essential to clarify this. What is our purpose? In what consciousness are we? Are we raising them in the mindset of a bee or the mindset of a fly? We tell ourselves, I want him to be. This is the consciousness of a fly. When you start, I want him to be such and such a person. That is, I'm doing this for myself. I'm raising him for myself. I want him to be a certain way. This is the mindset of a fly. The second option for raising children we can't even imagine. How else can it be? What other options are there at all? What's the second option? I wish him happiness. Correct. But why am I raising him? So that he becomes a good person. I want him to be a good person in the consciousness of a fly. What are the other options? I'm obligated to make him happy. I'm obligated to give him happiness so that he would be happy. I am obligated. That is, I am at fault. This is the consciousness of a bee. I want to help him to some extent. He's bad, I'm good. No, I am obligated to do it. I really want him to be happy. He is obligated as well. He is more obligated than I am. After all, I've already given birth to him. There should be mutual obligation. In the end, I'm not the only one obligated. Why aren't you all giving me a lecture now? Should I be the only one giving lectures to you for 20 days in a row? This is the mindset of a fly. The consciousness of a fly constantly ricochets. It is always bouncing around. I must make him happy. I must ensure he is content, and he owes me. This is a ricochet. It comes from a false ego. The false ego insists, you serve me, I don't want to serve you. This is how the false ego manifests. Our consciousness is very subtle and complex. It's very difficult to understand the true nature of our consciousness. The phrase is only slightly changed to I want to make him a good person. This means he should act according to my desires. But when it's my duty to make him happy, I will focus on what needs to be done for him to be happy. Then I will consider his nature. What does this person want? What does my son want in general? What does he aspire to? What good things does he want? What bad things does he want? I shouldn't indulge in what harms him. I should support what nurtures his positive growth. This is the essence of real upbringing. But first of all, what should I do to make him happy? Not befoul him. At the very least, I should not befoul him with my presence. I should not torment him with my bad mood. For not tormenting my loved ones, what's the most important thing I should do? The most important thing I should do is become happy myself. Then everyone around me will be happy. How can I become happy? For this I should help others and serve God. My actions should stem not out of self-interest, but out of a genuine desire to make another person happy. Some people say, I do it out of a sense of duty. This indicates a lack of true desire to make others happy. You just need to make it pleasant. When someone asks you, why are you doing this? You should say, I felt like doing it, so I did it. Don't elevate yourself saying, I want all of you to be happy. This is boasting. It comes from your false ego. Secondly, you need to start secretly studying who God is. You need to start studying even in secret from yourself. The false ego resists, saying, don't study, it's all opium for the people. Now each of you look into your heart. Tell yourself, I want to study God, and inside, I don't want to. Who felt it? Mostly someone feels it. That's how it is for everyone. Some felt it, some didn't, but it's inside everyone, 100%. It's a 100% scenario, not even 99%. Some people immediately get indignant when I start talking about this. They think, well, this is nonsense. That's it. I'm leaving. There's nothing good here. When I say, I want to study myself, no questions arise. Everyone says, yes, that's normal. We need to study ourselves. But when I say, we need to study God, questions immediately arise. Why study God? I say, we need to study ourselves. No questions. I say, we need to study God. Questions right away. This is our false ego. We must understand how it works, and then we'll become happy. To become happy, we must study. It's hard to believe this. How to prove it? Where's the evidence? We need to look at who is happy in this world, who is truly happy in this world, who has studied this question. Let's find those who have studied it. Please start studying. Go to a banker, take a look. Look with your heart, not with your eyes. Some look with the eyes of envy, but you need to look with the eyes of your heart. Who has seen a happy banker or a rich person? Who has seen a happy debauchee or a greedy person? But it's not difficult to see a happy, holy person if they are truly holy. They are indeed happy. Who has seen such people? Are there such people? Yes, there are. They are truly happy. Who is happy? Who possesses happiness? The one who makes friends with someone. If a person makes friends with money, they possess suffering. If a person makes friends with God, they possess happiness. Money will come on its own. The scriptures say that when a person is born, they have already received all the wealth they are meant to have. Nothing's going to change anymore. The more we grab, the more flies away from us. We take over an entire bank and suddenly it goes bankrupt. We think, bad luck. No, these are all laws. That's how it will be. If you are destined to raise a whole bank or even more, according to your fate, if in a past life you did charity work, you will have a bank. If not, then there will be nothing. No need to put excessive effort into this. We need to put excessive effort into understanding where happiness is. This is the consciousness of a bee. Maybe we're going down the wrong road. True health comes when happiness bursts from within through our attitude, when we are focused on other people and want to make them happy. This is the law. The divine power of the Oversoul comes out of us only at this time. This is how God educates us. He wants to develop a state of service in us. When we want to serve everyone around us, the power of happiness comes out of us and we can feel it. When we want everything for ourselves, God closes off this power from us. We become anxious. We feel something's not right, something's missing. And we can live our whole life in this state, trying to grab everything for ourselves. There's always not enough. Something's not right. I've already taken so much money and still, it's not enough. I already have 50,000 credits. A creditor approaches. Do you have enough money or not? No, it's my nature to want even more. It's my hobby, my occupation, my way of life to earn more and more. The person is not satisfied. When did a person see divine power? When they serve others. They say, it's not enough for me. I feel unhappy. I see that there are sublime souls who are 1,000 times happier than I am. I realized this too late. I started making other people happy. I want everyone to be happy, but not so much because I don't have purity inside. Such people strive for purity. They start thinking, that's terrible, I spent so much time doing the wrong thing. I only cared about earning more money and having more stuff. Now I understand where happiness comes from. I did something good, at least once in my life for someone. I felt how great it is. Such people think, what a poor thing I am, I'm so miserable, I have nothing, no good qualities. Such a person begins to develop good qualities in themselves. They start working on self-improvement. They think, I lied today, this is not good, I shouldn't. When I lie, I lose the power of happiness. Happiness is leaving me from the inside. I want to understand the nature of true joy. I haven't seen this joy all my life. I was doing the wrong thing. A completely different life begins, a secret life. It's hidden from the eyes of other people. Who will understand this life? A person may feel boundless happiness within himself, but it will be hidden from others who do not want to see it. Discontent is not hidden because it immediately comes out. If we don't see boundless happiness in another person, it doesn't mean they don't have it. Do we want to see this? How much do we really trust this person? We should start listening to God, trying to study the scriptures and search, where in scriptures can I find more happiness? Where is there happiness? This is the consciousness of a bee. And there comes a moment when life becomes very joyful and health comes on its own. The heart receives power from the oversoul and fills with immense nectar. As a result, a person's health improves immediately. There is slow healing and there is fast healing. To heal quickly, you need to change your attitude. It's like a person who keeps walking into a wall and hitting their head against it. They just need to turn around and walk out the door. The whole difficulty is in turning around. Everyone around is doing the same thing, going into this wall and hitting it. This wall is the lack of desire to overcome one's false ego. When we start to overcome it, it will constantly resist. Every day you will experience extraordinary difficulties in suppressing anger within yourself and doing something nice for a loved one. Every day you will think, why doesn't he want to do something nice for me? This will happen every second. Such is the power of the false ego. Every day you'll want to proclaim loudly, I'm a good person. You don't understand. This power arises every day, but one who takes this path of happiness must do so unselfishly. And then they will truly comprehend it. This is the essence of the bee's consciousness. And God's consciousness is the same. A person who understands what happiness is, that it exists, and that in fact everything around can be illuminated by happiness, and life is enveloped only in happiness, and there will be no sorrows. This state is called God consciousness. That means that this person is in God consciousness. God has exactly the same consciousness, and we must achieve this consciousness. This is a very simple method. You just need to wish happiness for everyone. There is another more perfect method. This particular method was intended for this era. This method is called repeating the names of God, because you can wish nectar for everyone, but also you can give it. When we wish nectar for everyone, surely everyone will receive it, because any desire of the soul in this world is fulfilled. God is not different from His name, and when people pronounce the name of God, they immediately and automatically give nectar that comes out of their mouth. At this moment, a very strong cleansing occurs, such a method. All the names of God that you know, Jesus, for example. I can name many names of God. According to the Vedas, there are as many births of God as there are waves in the ocean, and God is always born for a specific purpose, to give a certain understanding of happiness. In each era, happiness can be achieved in different ways. I explained what an era is. The previous era was many hundreds of thousands of years ago. In that previous era, people followed a different path. They had to serve in temples, perform some religious rituals, and that's how they achieved happiness. In our era, it is very difficult to achieve happiness in this way. In this era, our consciousness has already descended so much that we cannot cleanse ourselves like that, and also there aren't many temples around. Therefore, there is another simpler method. It is called repeating the holy names of God, or chanting the holy names of God. It can be done in two ways, which are essentially the same. There is also group chanting, when many people gather together and start repeating the names of God. This method was given for our era, and it will continue throughout this era. This method is the purest and the strongest, because we are not capable of understanding anything else. We cannot properly perform some religious ritual to understand God. Before that, in the previous era, people had to perform severe asceticism practices. That means that they had to be in meditation for many years in order to understand God. Now this is no longer possible because the mind has now become very tense and restless. A person can't even freeze for a minute and concentrate on some thought. Everything in their head is constantly changing. They can't do it. Therefore, it is very difficult to engage in such meditation. That's why there is another meditation. This is repeating the holy names of God. You just repeat and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Your and your heart will be cleansed. The second method is listening to the repetition of someone who really possesses this power. It is also a very powerful method, because listening, as we discussed in previous lectures, gives strength to a person. Thus, there are two methods. Which names of God you will repeat, you must choose for yourself. I can just list the names of God that I know. What you all know is Jesus. He is also called Isa, as he was named in the Vedas. It was said there that Isa, the Son of God, would come and give divine knowledge to the people. Also, the Vedas said that Buddha would come and he would teach people not to eat and kill animals. That was his mission. I also know that 5,000 years ago, God appeared as Krishna, which means all-loving. He taught people to love. And 500 years ago, the last time 500 years ago, God came under the name Chaitanya. He gave people an understanding of how to worship God in our era. He explained that there is such a method of chanting the holy names of God. In each era, God comes and gives his method of coming to the spiritual world, to spiritual knowledge, to purity. Before that, God came under the name Rama, which means all-pleasing. And so on, there are many names of God. There is the name Allah. For example, there is Sabaoth. Some know this name of God, Sabaoth. Christians know. It is described in the Bible, in the Old Testament, and so on. There are many names of God, and each has power. This means that repeating a certain name of God will help you achieve certain goals. Krishna means all-loving. In Russia, we also worshipped Krishna. We have a Krisha, roof in English. Roof is what protects. They called him Krishan here in Russia. Krishan, the all-loving Lord. There is a name of God called Vishnu. Have you heard of it? In Russia, we called him Vishen, and that's why the word vis, upwards, visoko, high, Всевышний, the Almighty, came from the word Vishen. You see how much interesting information you can learn. There are many names of God. Svarga is not exactly the name of God. Perun is already a demigod. Svarga means Svargaloka. Do you know what is it? It's a Sanskrit word. Svargaloka means heavenly planets. Svarga is Indra. the ruler of heaven. There are other names too. Perun is also not a name of God, it's a demigod. It's just an administrator in this universe that performs some functions. Don't confuse all these things. There are incarnations of God and there are coming of some exalted personalities. All this is described in the Vedas. You can study it. Everything coincides with the Vedas. There can be some differences. Yes, all of this. Cupid is described in the Vedas, yes. Okay, we've gone a bit deep. You just should understand that this question can be studied in the same way as studying how to gossip. In fact, we've automatically learned all this stuff because this era is called, do you know the name of this century, this era in which we live? Ignorance, degradation, and hypocrisy. Therefore, such qualities automatically develop: the desire to gossip, to engage in debauchery, to degrade, to be angry with everyone and everything. But if we really want to be happy, we need to overcome all this. Of course, some people don't want to hear such things about our era, but I can't do anything about it. That's what is written in the Vedas. Let's continue answering the notes. Could you please tell us about the relationship between a man and a woman? We've already talked about this quite a lot. Has the person who wrote this question been to previous lectures or not? If not, you should listen to them. In general, I can say that there are two types of relationships. There are selfish relationships based on the desire to enjoy another person. These relationships lead to suffering. There are relationships based on the desire to give happiness to another person, the desire to do something very useful and good for them. These two types of relationships have different results. When a person wants to enjoy another person, they become befouled, because the opposite sex has an opposite charge. When you try to enjoy a person of the opposite sex, befoulment occurs. Such men and women begin to feel a very strong aversion towards each other after some time. It's a matter of time, about a year at most, and that's it. Love is gone, the honeymoon is over. There is another type of relationship where the family doesn't fall apart and there are no problems. Two people want to serve God, serve each other, do something good and useful, and see this as the meaning of life. Then the family is very solid, strong, and there are no problems. This is about relationships briefly. You can explore more deeply and in detail on your own. Which deity do the Vedas recommend worshipping? The Vedas do not recommend worshipping a deity. The Vedas recommend worshipping God. There are different ways of worshipping God. While worshipping God, a person may make an image themselves or take an image that a saint has drawn. One can worship it, and then God enters this image with divine power. He sees that we want to see Him this way, and He fills this image with power. This is called consecration. If we worship God by carving a statuette of God, imagining Him this way, and start worshipping, the statuette becomes blessed with power. That's what is written in the Vedas. This will happen immediately. Such is the law as God Himself wanted it. What other way do we have to communicate with Him? We are not able to see Him directly. We can worship through some object, an image of God. It doesn't have to be one you made. You can take an authoritative version from holy people who know how He should look like. We take it and worship it. Gradually, the statuette or image of God becomes filled with divine power coming from the Oversoul. What does it mean to worship? It doesn't mean asking, "Give me bread." He will give bread anyway. He is God. It's like approaching your father and saying, "Why aren't you feeding me?" He's the Father. He will feed you 100%. He sees that we are hungry. We just need to love Him. Of course, you can say, "Give me bread and everything else," or you can simply repeat His name with love. It's better to simply repeat His name with love. How to check if your husband loves you or not? If he says, "Give me this, give me that," it's still unclear if it's love or not. When he truly loves, he repeats your name. He says, "Nadezhda, Nadezhda." He repeats. You think, yes, he loves me. He's not asking for anything, and repeats with love. Similarly with God, if we repeat His name with love, He sees that we don't want anything and gives only love. Then this image or statuette becomes filled with power. Some people can worship in their mind. A person can say, "I believe in God in my heart." Very good. Please create an image of God in your heart and worship Him right inside so that no one can even see. You can do this. There are such methods. Repeat His name and worship in your heart. There are many different options. Which deity does the Vedas recommend to be worshipped? The name that resonates with your soul. Find something. You haven't searched yet. Look, and you'll immediately find something for yourself. You'll feel good. You'll worship. If you're afraid that your loved ones will find out, you can worship in your heart. Causes of diseases. A sudden change of topic in the notes. We won't discuss this topic today. We've already talked about it a lot. You promised to talk about poltergeist. It's very simple. There are different dimensions that exist in the same place. Sometimes a person gets bored with what they already have, and a desire to see something unusual, supernatural, appears. God satisfies this desire. He places the person in another dimension. The person instantly perceives a different reality. When they contact it, this reality enters their reality. There's an intersection of two dimensions, and water starts pouring from the ceiling from one to another. This is poltergeist. If there is no desire in a person's heart for spirits to knock on the walls, they live a normal life. There is no poltergeist. Everything depends on the desires in our heart. If we want to see, we'll see something unusual. If someone really wants to see aliens, they will surely come in this life or the next and take them somewhere. I think there's no point in this. To get rid of it, you need to stop having such desires. The best thing is to repeat the holy name of God. Divine power will protect you immediately. To cure mental illnesses, all kinds of hallucinations, voices, and so on, you need to repeat the holy name of God. You will instantly feel support from within. This is a very simple method. I know many people who have already gotten rid of these issues. Can bee honey that has been stored for 5 years in a flask in an apartment be consumed? This would now be called mead. It's an alcoholic beverage, very strong. It causes intoxication. A person starts laughing, feeling happy, and then they get a hangover. This is enjoyment in degradation or passion. I was talking about honey in the heart. Someone didn't understand what I meant. You said that sweets can only be eaten in the morning. That's right, sweets can only be eaten in the morning, but not grain-based ones. As for cakes, you can eat a little bit after lunch, but not every day. You can give yourself such a treat once a week. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.